I believe that when you truly know yourself, you win. Welcome to On the Daily, the podcast where we dive real deep into human design, astrology, and your subconscious mind, all with the intention of you building your idea of a big delusional life and an even more delusional business. My name is Danielle McCleary, and I am a master human design and astrology teacher, somatic coach, business mentor, public speaker, and seven-figure entrepreneur. My biggest gift is the ability to see beneath the surface, and I think too many people look outside of themselves for who they should be and what they should be doing. Around here, that is unacceptable. Around here, we break the matrix and really remember who the heck we are underneath all the programming. This podcast will give you all of the tools, mindset, and practical application you'll need to be everything you came here to be in the shiniest way possible. Are you with me? Let's freaking go. Hello, On the Daily fam. Welcome back to the podcast. We are back in guest era. We're back in our guest era. I recorded a lot of episodes last year that were very much me, myself, and I really needed that because I think I was getting lost in the sauce with my own authority on things, or really who I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up and what I wanted to talk about. And I did that and I loved it. And now I am ready to start interviewing people again and having really awesome conversations with really awesome people. And so today's episode is just that. A friend of mine, his name is Khalil Rafati. He's the founder and CEO of SunLife Organics, which if you're in California, specifically the LA area, you definitely know about SunLife. It is the best smoothie and bowl place I've ever been to, but they're also here in Austin. And he's also the founder of Malibu Beach Yoga in Malibu. I really wanted to bring Khalil on, not just so we could talk about my favorite smoothie recipes, but what I really wanted to talk about was his story. He's also an author. He wrote a book called I Forgot to Die, which is his memoir all about kind of how he went from childhood to moving to LA, becoming wildly addicted to drugs, ending up homeless, and then fully turning his life around to now own many locations of SunLife Organics and just being this really rising entrepreneur and thought leader in the community. And I have always been really interested in his spiritual practices, because if you've ever been to SunLife, one of the things that the first signs you see is there's no Wi-Fi in here, get grounded and call your mom, or some variety of that. And there's always giant crystals in the shop. And I've always been really drawn to that brand. And obviously he's the man behind the brand. And, I think there's also a part of me, maybe it's all my Scorpio. There's a part of me that always is very drawn to people with a dark past who have completely turned it around, that depth and that transformation in people I'm really into. So I really wanted to have Khalil on the podcast. Our paths have crossed in many different areas of life over the last few years. And so this conversation is really awesome, especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you're on a spiritual journey, if you're going through some hard shit. I think conversations like this really help to just let you know that you're not alone. And we talked about a lot in this episode. We talked about his past, his rock bottom, those initiation moments that you look back on and go, wow, as awful as that was to go through, that's really the catalyst that changed my life. I talk about his astrology and his human design a little bit because, I couldn't interview him without doing that. And really just talking about where he's at now and a lot of the goals he has in the next few years. So I am really excited for you to hear this episode. And so let's get into it. Well, I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you.
I was going through your book, and I've been talking a lot because I think we're on this new wave of spiritual awakenings.
Okay. Same.
In the world. I think it's happening. We've reached that, and my biggest, I had one a little bit in 2007 because I was living in London at the time. And I and you grow up here, you hear how everyone thinks about us and what everyone thinks about our government. And then you go overseas and you're wait, actually, that's not how anyone feels about us. And that was kind of the first moment, but I was still 18 and young.
Yeah.
So I was okay, whatever. And
Yeah.
then 2018 was like my next big one.
Hmm.
And so then now I'm like watching all of these people start to go, wait a minute,
Yeah,
things aren't the way that I thought they were. And like things aren't the way that they seem. And
for sure.
then I was reading through your book and it was like you talk about how in rehab you had like a huge spiritual awakening.
Oh God. Yeah. Many.
Yeah. Well, that's what I want to talk about. So I like to not to like ad nauseum have you like tell your story a lot. Like if you're listening, I want people to go. I want you to go and listen. I want you to go and read Khalil's book because that's going to be the best way to hear his story. Your book is amazing.
Thank you so much.
I mean, I know you know that.
Well, I just got an order this morning for 26 more books, which means this happens constantly. No. Like so when you sell on Amazon, they send you these irritating orders rather than just stocking hundreds of them. They just constantly want you to ship 16, ship 27, ship 33, ship 74. And I mean, I get it. They have to keep their factories, they don't want to have a lot of, but I mean, it's been, I think I wrote it 10 years ago, 11 years ago, and it just continues to sell. And every time I do a podcast or if I go on like some crazy rant like I did yesterday on Instagram, I gained 300 followers yesterday.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But a year ago, I would have lost 300, right?
Yeah.
And because of the way the algorithms were working. And now all of a sudden, things have changed. But my story is it's a Cinderella story. I think people like it because it's a Cinderella story.
Yeah.
I was that the broken, insecure sister scrubbing floors in a sense.
Were you like that when you were a kid, or did that start with like the drug addiction in LA?
When I was a real little kid, I was in very independent of all of the drama and all of the trauma and all of the violence. Like I was able to go off into the woods or down to the creek or into the backyard and play with the bunnies and chase the butterflies and try to catch the crayfish and the minnows. So there were like moments of solace in my childhood, but the backdrop of it was a battlefield. I mean, it was violence and it was abuse and it was rage and I had a much older sibling who was trying to figure out his sexuality. So there was sexual abuse, incest, just gross, weird things.
Yeah, totally. That like as a kid, you're kind of just like, well, I'm going to go play with the bunny. And like in the moment, I feel better. And like literally it's just like packing into your ego and your subconscious. Like we'll deal with this later.
And also I think, and I don't know if this is exclusive to men because I'm although I've most of my life felt kind of half woman, half man, I can only speak about being a man based on what I've got going in my shorts.
Yeah.
I think men tend to shove things down and not deal with them.
Yeah.
So
I think society teaches that.
Yeah. And a coping mechanism as a child while being sexually abused was just to close my eyes and pretend I was sleeping and then hope that like it would end.
Yeah.
And so
kind of like disassociate.
Yeah. Yeah. As I got older and as the shame of all that plus the effects of the violence and the neglect and the fear and the anxiety and then the panic attack started to creep in, the depression, all of that. Then I began to self-medicate.
Yeah.
So early on, it was just trying to get attention with the older kids in the neighborhood, like drinking beers when I was a little kid and like taking a puff off of a joint. I really didn't know what the fuck was going on. But I will say right around 11, it wasn't like taking a sip to get a reaction from somebody. It was I chugged a beer and I felt that warm.
You felt better.
Yeah, I felt that comfort. And then
well, and you said like neglect in your childhood. So to feel that warmth, of course. Yeah, you're like little Khalil inside of you is like this is what we've wanted our whole life. So this is great.
Yeah, and all of a sudden I wasn't dirty. I always felt dirty.
Yeah.
I always felt and also, remember, this is rural Ohio. This is the 70s.
Yeah.
Father born in Jerusalem, pre-Israel, mother born in Poland. Both went through different wars, different trauma, different horror stories. So I had a weird name. I had weird parents. They both spoke different languages. They both had different religions. And then because they were so insistent that they wanted me to get an education, they shoved me into Catholic school system because that was the best that there was.
Yeah.
And the only private schools were not just Catholic, but they were Jesuit Catholic, which is like the strictest.
Catholic.
Yeah, the spanking your knuckles and paddling you and all that shit. So,
what brought your family to Ohio?
My mother was in search of her biological father that had given her up on a doorstep during World War II.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Found her, contacted her, left Poland to come meet her. And that woman, I guess my biological grandmother, a couple of days before my mother arrived, parked her car in the garage, kept it running, shut the garage intentionally, and took her own life. So
whoa.
The people, when she arrived, the people felt so bad for her. It was the Knight family, which there's a whole segue, which I won't go into, but the Knight family, which was a very wealthy family in Toledo, Ohio at that time that lived on Maumee River in Perrysburg, they took my mother in and they let her live there and they let her work as a housekeeper.
Oh, okay.
And go to school.
Okay.
My father was going from Orange, Texas to New York and got lost in a horrible storm, wound up in Toledo, ended up going to University of Toledo, met my mother. He was really, really, really good looking, like movie star good looking.
Yeah.
And she was a beautiful, he was like a powerful, dark Arab man.
Yeah.
And she was this very feminine, blue-eyed, sweet, angelic, little frail, pale-skinned, short Polish woman. And she thought she could fix him. She could change him. She could, heal him.
That is a tale as old as time.
Yeah.
Not my wife over there. I don't feel like I could fix her. But every other relationship I've been in, I was like, I will fix you. Don't worry. Here I am.
I get it. And then came me. And,
you were born in Ohio.
I was born in Ohio. So neither of them knew how to be parents.
Yeah.
And it was the 70s and it was the time of Archie Bunker. So no one was made more fun of during the 70s because of Archie Bunker than the Polish people. So I was told on one side, I was told I was stupid. And then on the other side, because of my father, dark, turban, Muslim, Arab, I was called names I can't even say out loud, or I would be canceled. Right. It was real.
Racism was alive and well.
Real.
In Toledo, Ohio.
Yeah.
Alive and well.
So
wow.
The drinking and the drugs were just a coping mechanism, as was masturbating, as was shoplifting, as was sexuality eventually as I got, 12, 13, 14, 15, lost my virginity at 12.
Yeah.
And panic attacks around that time, but didn't know what they were.
Yeah.
Certainly wasn't going to ask.
Right.
Because at that time.
Well, no, because then it's like you have to face it.
Well, not just that, but back then, you didn't want to be crazy because they would put you in what was called a padded room or a rubber room.
Oh, right.
And they would also put you into a straitjacket.
Yeah, there was no therapy.
Yeah.
You'd go straight for a lobotomy.
Yeah. I didn't think, I knew that I was going crazy because I would just be sitting there in class or whatever, and I would feel like I was falling off the back of a chair, or I could hear my heart racing, or words would echo in my head. I didn't know that it was anxiety. I didn't know they were panic attacks, acute panic attacks. Yeah. It wasn't until I didn't get diagnosed until I was 19. So I suffered for a good 6 years of horrific panic attacks, and the only thing I could do other than the drink and the drug, which wasn't very practical because I was fucking 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. The only thing I could do, I would bite myself. So cutting wasn't a thing yet, but I
gnaw on your hand.
If I bit myself really hard, it would make that, whatever that feeling was, go away.
Yeah.
And then interestingly enough, once I got diagnosed, Dr. Ben Sherman.
Shout out Ben.
I think I still owe him money for 7 sessions. Dr.
Ben.
Once he showed me in a book that chronic acute panic anxiety disorder, I was like, wait, feel like you're falling off a chair.
Check.
Here you're. Yeah, literally every single thing that I was feeling, he showed me in a book, and I'm like, oh, so I'm not crazy? And he's like, no, you're not crazy.
How old were you?
19 at that time.
Okay.
Yeah. So
had you moved to LA yet?
No.
Okay.
No, but he gave me a couple of packets of Xanax samples, and just having them, the placebo effect pretty much, and also knowing that I wasn't crazy.
Yeah, the confirmation of that.
Pretty much all just went away. I mean, a few times on a plane, maybe one time driving, or when someone else was driving, a couple of times there's been a few panic attacks here and there. Mm-hmm. Anxiety has been a constant, but more of a low-level anxiety. And depression comes whenever depression decides to show up.
Yeah.
And sometimes it shows up like a fucking freight train, and sometimes again it's low level and just kind of weird like and
knocking.
Yeah, had that this morning.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah,
couldn't shake it.
Well, I feel like you're a person that probably takes on a lot of the world around you. Like you're probably an empath a little bit.
Yes, very much so.
I only know this because I read your astrology this morning.
Oh, okay. Oh, so right.
So I'm like, he's an empath for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you take on the world, and obviously right now we're like, whenever you're listening to this, like we're recording this right after inauguration. So there's just like a heightened, the planet is heightened, I think, right now.
It is. And there's people hurting, and I don't want people to hurt.
I was talking about this I think I was on my TikTok the other day talking about this. And I said, there was this moment, and I don't, it's like, I always say, like, I actually don't care what side people are on. Like, I don't care what you believe in. I don't care what you think. Like, it really doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
And that I knew I was healing when I started to feel that way,
Yeah.
But I do feel like during the pandemic, whether or not you were like all in on the pandemic or not all in, everyone felt that something was off.
Yeah.
And whether you voiced it or not, who knows?
Yeah.
But everyone felt that something was off.
True.
And I think that was like the moment I was like, oh, we're all in an awakening right now. Like we're all like the consciousness is evolving.
Yes.
And, chaos is the way to that. And I think you're the perfect.
True.
True. Everyone thinks that like, oh, I'm going to have my spiritual awakening when I align with my highest self. And
right.
Actually,
right.
You're going to have your awakening when you hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And what you think is your rock bottom is actually not your rock bottom. And it's going to go a lot more rockier than that.
Yeah.
Like, I think some of my biggest initiations have been in my like most darkest, chaotic times. Like my dad dying, who was like one of my best friends, was the biggest initiation to a higher self that I've ever had.
Yeah, I had the trifecta. My mother was dying.
Yep.
I had some disgruntled employees that were saying mean things about me, which normally I'd be like, I don't, who fucking cares?
Yeah.
But at that point, I didn't even have the wherewithal to defend myself.
Mm-hmm.
It was the lockdown.
Yep.
Yep. It caught a little bit of momentum for a moment. My mom's dying. That's happening. Global pandemic.
Like a lot of isolation.
Yeah. And at that point, I hit a wall, and I just thought, you know what? Fuck this. I don't need to be here. I don't need to do anything. Yep. Like, the women that are running the company are doing a far superior job than I was anyway. Right. So why not just fess up to that? Yeah. Why not just hand the reins over to them, move to Miami, and just move to Miami and be semi-retired?
Yeah, there you go.
And that was the plan. And we make plans, and then God laughs. And so we moved to Miami. We picked out a house. We were about to buy it, and then my girlfriend said, we have to go to Texas. And I'm like, Texas? I'm not going to Texas. Like, I'm in heaven right now.
Yeah, you're like, I'm by the sun. I'm by the beach.
Yeah, we have to go to Texas. That store is failing. That's the one. John Paul DeJoria gave us $1 million to open that store. We've already burned through. Yeah, we've already burned through like $600,000 of that.
Yeah,
or 800, whatever it was. And she's like, the store is doing $200 a day. It's like we have to go rescue that store.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to, but we came here. We moved into the Line Hotel. And we set about rescuing that store, and here I am 4 years later.
I was going to say, it's one of the biggest stores you have now, right?
Yeah, it's one of the busiest.
I was going to say, for sure. I mean, I'm sure your California stores obviously do well, but
yeah, South Congress is jamming. I mean, I just came from there. I brought you guys the smoothies, and it was packed, and it's freezing outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go into like the depths of your addiction. And is that okay? We can talk about it. It's in your book. You're an open book.
Of course. So I was a fucking junkie, crack smoking, dope shooting, shoot to death's door.
Well, and one of the things I really love about you and I love about your book is that you are so yourself. And I think that's how you can tell that someone's healed, because they're able to really dive into the depths of their pain, not just from an authenticity. Because like, I know I've been able to shield my vulnerability by hiding behind my authenticity before.
Yeah.
And I always am really impressed when people don't do that. And I think you don't do that. You're very open with like all of your pain.
Yeah.
But I think
what you see is what you get.
Yeah. I think one of the things that really like struck me was in the book, you're talking about like there's the party you went to and you overdosed at a party and then you kept doing drugs.
Yep.
And I think this is, whether it's drugs, whether it's just like making the same mistakes with money or making the same mistakes with your relationships, this is like a pretty common story where people will do the thing over and over and the pattern. It's a pattern. It's a loop. And I was really thinking like, what was this pattern like symbolizing for you? Because obviously it's not just like, oh, I want to keep doing drugs. It's like, here's this thing that like makes you feel better. And even though like it's killing you, it makes you feel like you're on top of the world when you're doing it. And it's like, I was just so fascinated by that moment. And the way that you told it was so cool. But it was like, you went back on drugs, like you didn't quit. But then it wasn't long after that you actually did, like, finally a friend took you to rehab.
Yeah.
Right. And you were like, it just clicked.
Yeah.
Right. So tell me about that, because how does somebody go? Like I think.
Well, the wheels had come off. You know, they say you have to hit bottom, and I didn't get that memo. So when I hit bottom, I got out like a pickaxe and a shovel, and I kept digging.
Yeah, you just kept going. Yeah.
And the wheels had already come off. So at that point, we were running around with that actor. And I'm proud of myself for not naming names, because
I'm proud of you too. I was questioning, but
I could have really sold some fucking books.
100% you could have.
I mean, and I have. I've sold tens of thousands of copies, but by the grace of God, I could have sold millions if I would have told. So we were hanging out with that actor.
Yeah.
The wheels had already come off, meaning like I had already stopped paying my bills. We had gotten evicted. And we were shooting now and not smoking. We were, you
just went straight
hypodermic, hypodermic needle drug users.
Yeah.
So the wheels had fall off. Credit was shot. Work was gone.
Yeah.
I didn't give a fuck at that point.
Yeah. You were just like this vessel.
Yeah. And that night in particular, I intentionally took that overdose because it seemed glamorous and it seemed like the right thing to do, or like that's exciting or whatever.
Had you ever overdosed before at this point?
I had overdosed many times. I had never died. That night I died.
You died. Yeah. You had to be revived. Yeah.
That night they had to take the fucking defibrillator out. And when that happened, it was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, this is bad.
Yeah, like, wow, wait, what happened?
Did you like see the light? Do you have any memory of that?
There was no light. No.
There was no tunnel you were walking down. It wasn't like that.
Well, suicide should never be an option.
Right.
It's the antithesis of God. It should never be an option. The place that I went to when I intentionally took that overdose was the absence of God, and it was cold and it was terrifying and it was permanent and it was very real, and I was floating above my body, and that's all in the book. That was horrific. And the defibrillator, and then the ambulance
see
ride
it from above.
That was bad. I was a pathetic shoot to die junkie, and I really enjoyed being high. Like, it felt great. I really enjoyed the combination of heroin and cocaine in a hypodermic needle, shooting it into my veins. It was the best that I had ever felt.
Yeah.
And I had suffered most of my life and felt shitty and dirty as a child, and then worthless as a young man, and kind of becoming that bum, loser, piece of shit, as my father used to refer to me, kind of becoming that. The high school dropout, the convicted felon, I was
all the things. Yep.
Yeah. So it was like, I had
Did you feel like you were in control a little bit though? Like, even though you were out of control, like, do you think there was a part of you that like,
up until that point, yes.
You got to choose when you were high and you got to control it.
Yeah. Until that point, yes. But after that, things became progressively worse. And then eventually, my girlfriend's parents had set up a team, and they were waiting for an opportunity to extract her and get her away from me.
Yeah.
And at that point, I became completely homeless, and I spent about 20 months wandering around downtown LA, sleeping under bridges. And
you were in Skid Row for a while.
I was on Skid Row, yeah. So panhandling, welfare, food stamps, begging my mother to Western Union me money. That was really, really bad. At that point, it didn't really feel like control. At that point, I was kind of like, oh, fuck, it's over.
Really did it now.
Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 31 to 33.
Yeah.
And at 33, through a bunch of horrific circumstances, I just came to and was like...
You surrendered.
Yeah, I surrendered. I reached out to Bob Forrest, who, if people are in the world of recovery or used to watch Celebrity Rehab, they know who Bob Forrest is. I reached out to Bob Forrest, who worked for a musician's assistance program, and they put me into treatment. They kept me there for a couple months, and they put me into a halfway house. They kept me there as long as I could, as long as they would continue paying. They gave me and everybody else $40 a week to live on.
Yeah.
Which somehow we made it work. We went to Smart and Final, and we got the giant Prego jars and the spaghetti noodles, and we rolled our own cigarettes, and that was my life. And I was 33 years old, and I was like, oh wow, now I'm fucked. I'm not going to go backwards. I'm not going back to the drugs.
Yeah.
Like
you had like chosen sobriety.
Yeah. I ultimately bottomed out in such a fashion that I had zero desire to go back to it. And I didn't sit around and wonder, like, I wonder if I could smoke weed. I wonder if I could. I had no.
It was like a switch.
Yeah.
Like the light was off or the light was on, and then the light turned off or the light turned, like whatever, whatever imagery works for people.
There was a switch. There was also the grace of God, whatever it is that created us. And I somehow intuitively knew that grace was granted not all the time.
Yeah.
And that if you do get granted that grace and you do get struck sober or clean or whatever.
Don't fuck it up again.
Yeah, grab onto that motherfucker.
Yeah.
So I did. And I decided that I would rejoin the human race, and I would have to learn how to chop wood and carry water, metaphorically speaking, obviously. I didn't have any skills.
Yeah.
I didn't have any, I didn't even have a high school degree, and I had the felony against me. So it was very challenging to reenter society. But this is America.
Yeah.
This is the greatest country in the world.
Yeah.
And I was willing to work hard, and people recognized me working hard, and I was able to climb out of that hopeless state of despair.
Yeah. When I was looking at your astrology, you have your midheaven, which is the top of your chart when you were born. It's in Aquarius. And Aquarius is kind of like the alien sign.
Okay.
Because you're always like, I feel like my son is in Aquarius midheaven, and there's always this like thinking 10 steps ahead of everyone else kind of energy. And when Aquarius is it's in your 10th house of career and public image, it really works for entrepreneurship.
Wow.
Yeah. And it really works for kind of creating something out of nothing from a place of, I don't need you to understand this, but like, I know where I'm going. So I really love how like, you talked about like juicing and like superfoods really kind of led to the idea for SunLife. And then when I looked up your chart, I was like, of course, like that's such an Aquarian thing.
Yeah.
You also have Gemini in your chart, and Gemini rising is like, it's an air sign. It's mutable air. So Gemini is one of those signs where you're very smart, and you are eloquent, and you speak very well, and you have a lot of ideas. And there's always this flightiness, I think, to Gemini, where it's like, you could go this way or you could go this way.
Yeah.
But it was like no surprise when I saw your chart, because I was like, oh, of course he just like literally went from the depths of hell to building like not only a really successful brand, but also like a really successful brand rooted in like health and healing. Like that's very Aquarian.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I've never heard it described like that.
Well, that's Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which is the ruler of the mind.
Okay.
So in astrology, Mercury rules our mind. It rules communication. And if you have Gemini in those top 3 placements, you're really good at communicating your message. You're really good at putting yourself out there. And I almost think too, like I looked up your human design also.
Okay.
And you and I actually have very similar human designs.
Nice.
There's profiles in human designs, and ours is called 6. It's a 6-2. It's like 2 numbers.
Okay.
Which basically means that our life goes in these 3 phases. 0 to about 30, maybe 35. Mm-hmm. It's our trial and error phase. I call it pure fucking chaos. Yeah. You would as well.
Whew.
Then you kind of go into the second phase of life, which is like your on the roof kind of phase of life where you're observing all of those things that you learned in your 20s and early 30s.
Yeah.
You're now putting them into like, oh, this is why I think the way I do now. And this is why I feel the way I do. And it's like you're putting it all together.
Yeah.
And then as we get closer to 50, we're like, we come home to ourselves and we actually become wiser with age. Another example of a 6'2", and like love him or hate him, Obama's a 6'2". But if you think about like when he went into the office, he was, he wasn't quite 50 yet. And it's like, whether you agree or disagree, he's almost like become known as like this wise pillar as he ages.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how us as 6'2s are.
Love
so
that.
when I read your book, I said to Breezy, I was like, he has to be a 6'2". Like there's just no way, because I almost feel like just watching your story and like, I taught at Soul Cycle in LA. So like we're huge. We know SunLife real well, So like I've kind of like always known your story and like followed it. And I feel like as you get wiser and as you, age, which age is just a fucking number, but you have gotten a lot more confident in who you are, and you speak a lot more from your truth. And I think that's why you can like speak so open and honestly about your political beliefs, like your religious beliefs, like faith, spiritual beliefs, like whatever it is, and you don't alienate people. Because it's all within the guise of let's bring people together.
Yeah.
I really do feel, a lot of people, regardless if you are liberal, whether you're Democrat, whether you're Christian, whether you're not Christian, the media, right? They're paid to keep us separate.
Yeah.
They're paid to keep, if you and I disagree on something, they're paid to make sure that we hate each other because of it.
Right.
And it's like, we can't even focus on the things that are real, because we're taught that if we're not obsessing over this thing, that we are bad people, that we are awful. And, there's so many double standards, depending on whether it's double standard on the left, double standard on the right, they're everywhere. And it's like, what happened? And this is where I think like we are moving back to, again, with the age of Aquarius that we're in now, like Aquarius is the sign of humanitarianism. And it's the sign of I'm going to do whatever I want. And I actually don't care if you agree with it, because I'm not focused on what is right now. I'm focused on what could be.
Yeah.
And what could be is a very unified, loving, peace-centered place.
Yeah.
It's never been right versus left. It's always been up versus down.
Yeah.
Specifically, big tech, big pharma.
Yep.
That like the people at the very, very top that control most of the things. And I don't have a problem with billionaires. I don't have a problem with money. Like I think like you work hard for your shit. C'est la vie, live your life.
Yeah.
And this whole guise of like, it's always been us versus them, right versus left, is such bullshit.
Yeah.
Because it never has been.
Yeah.
And if you really were to ask people, like, what do you want more than anything? Most people would say something along the lines of, I want peace and freedom for me and my family.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's how they feel. And maybe, you grew up in LA. Like I grew up in Los Angeles. So like, I was dancing professionally, and like I was driving through multiple socioeconomic neighborhoods just to get to dance class. That's a very different lived reality than someone who grew up in rural Ohio.
For sure.
That's a very different reality than somebody who grew up in middle of nowhere Arkansas. So it's like, how can we take these two people who have very different lived experiences and be like, well, you should feel this way or you should feel this way? You can't. You can't.
And your experience is your experience.
And it's all part of the collective consciousness.
Yep.
And like one of the things I always say is like, instead of you trying to get on everyone else's river, how about we just teach people to be so okay with themselves and what they believe in and what you think and what you believe to be true. Stay in your own river. And then we all trust that like at the end of it, we're all connected to the same big, beautiful blue ocean.
Yeah.
Or the same divinity, whether that be God, source, universe, like whatever you call it, you know, whatever name feels good for you. But it's like, we're all these individuals, and like, thank God for that, because can you imagine if like everybody felt the same way and but that's what we see.
Yeah.
We see this like this cultural war of like, it's cool to be this way and it's not cool to be that way. And it's like, well, okay, but like ultimately, isn't it, isn't it the most cool to just like really be so tuned into yourself and what you believe in and who you are and what you stand for, and then be so okay in that like you celebrate that in other people also.
Yes. Yeah. And I think people thought that Nelson Mandela said it, but I think it was actually Marianne Williamson, or it could be the other way around. But that whole thing about like, don't think that making yourself small is helping anybody. You need to shine so brightly and so big and be so radiant, because then what you end up doing is you give other people permission.
Have you ever looked up the definition of humble in the dictionary?
No.
It's fucking bullshit. It literally says to dim your own accomplishments to make other people feel comfortable. I'm like, fuck that.
Wow.
Like, humility has ruined us as a society, because then it's like you have all these people that can't be themselves. They can't shine bright. Yeah. And I'm like, how about instead we all just teach people how to shine their absolute fucking brightest?
Yeah. You can. So I'll tell you some things that I've learned recently. So when I was in Abu Dhabi and Dubai.
You just recently got back, right?
Yeah. I was with a big group of people that are all that have all bought lots at the new Michael Melvin Discovery Land surf, Kelly Slater or whatever.
It's like an indoor surf thing, right?
No.
It's the big. It's a
man-made wave.
Yes.
That Kelly Slater invented.
Yeah.
And then Michael Melvin, who owns Discovery Land, which is where all the rich and famous, the billionaires and the movie stars buy homes together and they live behind walls.
Yes.
And vote Democrat.
Yes. It's giving very Capitol Hunger Games.
But they don't want a wall at the border. But those people got together and they're building this thing in Austin out by the airport that is going to be the end all be all. It's going to be not 1, but 2 1,000-yard man-made waves. So did you see on my Instagram when I was surfing those waves?
Yes.
So that's 1,000-yard wave in the middle of Abu Dhabi.
Wow.
Millions and millions and millions of dollars were built to build it in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
And to be in the middle of the desert and to surf a wave. Do you surf?
I did, yeah. I haven't in a while. We live here now, but.
So to surf 1,000-yard.
Yeah, it's a long wave.
I mean, this was the most fun I've had, I think, since I was a child at Cedar Point. That's a Midwest reference. You guys had Magic Mountain. We had Cedar Point.
Yep, I've heard of Cedar Point.
I had so much fun there, but everybody there, with the exception of me, and I will be someday, but everyone there was very, very wealthy.
Yeah.
And something really interesting, almost every single person there, because I'm curious, I love people.
Yeah.
And I'm Kelly was there, Kelly Slater.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, well, who's that guy? And who's that? Because I want to know. I love exciting people.
Yeah, student of life.
People. If you don't know me well, you'll think like, oh, he's obsessed with famous people. Like I am, but I'm obsessed with prolific people.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed
with the resource
of
fame.
Yes, the people that do things. Yeah. Like I want to know, even if you are famous for being famous, how?
Well, it's the resource of fame.
Yes.
And I always, you know what? Okay, so I'll sidebar and then I want to hear the story. You know how everyone like hates the Kardashians and they hate all these people and they like, and I used to feel that way. I used to be like, ugh, like the celebrity thing, I'm so over it. But like there's a part of me now that's like, because I work so much I do neurolinguistics programming with my clients. So like I work in your subconscious mind and I'm like, there is a certain level of healing you have to do to your fear of being seen to be famous. You can't be famous unless you like longevity famous.
Yeah.
Like, there's people that are flash in the pan. Then like Chappell Roan.
Yep.
Really good example of someone that's not going to last unless she like gets over her fear of being seen.
Yeah.
Because she got really famous. She got really scrutinized.
Yeah.
Because like it's the universal law of polarity, right? Like you can't have people love you unless people hate you. That's just the way it is. Yeah. Like if you're
I just spent a week with Andrew Huberman.
Well, right. Like if you're not strong enough to repel the wrong people, then you're not strong enough to attract the right people. And people that are famous, like they really have to heal that fear of being seen so that they can hold this resource of fame. So like I'm always super impressed by people like that. Like people like Justin Bieber that are like the amount of shit that is thrown at him. Taylor Swift, the amount of shit that's thrown at her and she just like keeps fucking going. I'm like they're healing something deep inside of them because most people could never. That's why most people never speak up about their own beliefs and how they feel about things because they're so afraid of what people think.
Yeah.
So I'm all for fame in that way.
So love fame, love people that have done amazing things. And one of the guys very quickly, I was boasting about John Paul DeJoria and how he was like, I want a SunLife in Austin and I'll give you $1 million to do it. I'm obviously paraphrasing. And I'm just like, am I being punked right now? This guy's going to like give me $1 million to open up my favorite thing that I love doing in a place like Austin, Texas. And I wasn't being punked, and it was very real.
Yeah.
The part of the story that I was telling him that was crazy is, number one, when we did start paying him back in tranches of $200,000, after the third one, his wife had reached out and said, JP would love to take you to lunch. Takes me to lunch. How you doing? Good. He's like, you look great. I said, thank you. He goes, store's doing great. I said, thank you. He goes, do you think at some point I could get some of my money paid back? I'm like, I paid you back $600,000. And he goes, oh, no, we haven't received anything. And I'm like, yeah, we've paid you $200,000 3 times. He goes, that's impossible. Now I have like the sweat going down my back. I grab my phone on speakerphone. I call our CFO. I'm like, thank God she answered. Jamie, I said, you've paid John Paul DeJoria how many tranches of $200,000? She goes, 3. Why? I said, can you tell me how?
Yeah.
She goes,
did you send it homing pigeon?
No. She goes, I wired it to his account. And he goes, ask her for the account number. I go, Jamie, which account did you send it to? She's, hang on. What seemed like an eternity, all of a sudden she goes, oh, blah, 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 blah. He goes, oh gosh, that's my family office. He goes, I didn't even know. And I'm like,
wow,
this is a movie. I'm in a fucking movie right now. I paid this guy $600,000 and he didn't even notice.
That's so baller.
And he goes,
sign me up.
Can you do me a favor? Can you just write me a check next time? Because I don't use email and I don't know about all those wires and everything. Could you, he's worth $14 billion. Yeah. He goes, could you just write me a check and bring it over? Let's have dinner. And I'm like, of course. So I'm sharing this story with these people in the middle of the desert. And all of them, most of them were fascinated. It was amazing. But there was one guy that had to let me know that he had more money.
Of course.
And that he was, and I know JP, and this is what I did. And when I financed that, that restaurant in West Hollywood, well, I financed it. And I told him, don't even bother paying me back. And I'm sitting there going, why is this fucking guy doing this?
Wounding.
He's a billionaire. I'm telling a story. I feel awkward. I'm not wealthy yet. I live off of a very humble salary.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to like fit in with these people who I had their attention for a moment. He couldn't. He had to step in and bulldoze me. Now, here's what happened, because I spent a week with these people. Here's what happened multiple times over the next week, both in the sauna, in the water, at dinner, and just sort of sitting on a lounge chair. Quite a few of those people, they were mostly men, at one point or another, when we were talking and they were asking me all these questions, and I was like, so Kelly told me that you blah, 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 blah. All of them had the exact same response. You know what they said? I just got lucky. I just got lucky. Yeah. So there can be a good humility.
100%.
There can be a good humility.
Yes.
And the fact that these men who were a little bit older than me and much more successful and much smarter than me said to me, I just got lucky. They didn't just get lucky. No. They worked their fucking asses off and they created something. Yeah. And it's amazing, but they wanted to utilize the tool of humility. And also back to Huberman, when you're with him in person and he's talking to you, and I know Lex Friedman does this as well, they intentionally dial down their vocabulary to make you feel like you're on an equal playing field, to make you feel comfortable.
Yeah,
Andrew,
he does do that.
Andrew, like for 7 years, we've had this incredible dialogue back and forth, and gone through all our trials and tribulations and built this beautiful friendship. Then one day he had asked me to come see him speak a couple times, and I said no. And then one time he said, what was his tell? Like, I got you a ticket and they're $4,000. And I'm like, that's so cute. First of all, he didn't pay $4,000 for the ticket. He's saying like, I really want you to be there.
Yeah.
and he knows how pretentious and shallow I am. So he's trying to lure me in with this shiny
like,
thing. I got you a ticket and it was $4,000.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's cute. I'm going to go. And I went, and it was in Palm Beach, and I went, and it was the first time that I heard Andrew Huberman versus my friend Andrew.
Yep.
And it was...
Does he change the way he speaks depending on...
Fucking mind-blowing.
Wow.
How brilliant he was on that stage. Cool. My mouth was like partly open as I was sitting there. Like there was a couple of times where like, I should film this shit. And then I realized like, no, I think you're the only one in this room that doesn't know that this is
a thing.
Yeah. I was so blown away when he
awesome.
broke down the basic pillars of health. I just sat there like absorbing this energy, and you know, and in a nutshell, I mean, he took 25 minutes and it was super eloquent, but in a nutshell, I mean, he basically said like, if you don't have your circadian rhythm down, if you're not going to bed at the same time each night, waking up at the same time, if you're not getting sunlight, your circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
If your microbiome isn't in order.
Yep.
And if you are not lifting heavy weights at least a couple of times a week, all this other shit that you guys want to know about and talk about and buy it means nothing.
Yep.
And I was like, holy shit, this guy's a genius.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I realized...
That's kind of like very much like your kind of... that's like your, I would say like how you operate in your life now, right? Like you're very set with your routines and like...
I am because Rick Rubin, Andrew Huberman, whoever, different people. I sound like an LA name dropping douchebag right now, but people took me under their wing.
Yeah.
And people mentored me.
You had really good mentors.
Yeah. And people taught me. Yeah. So I just, I look up to people. I learn from them. I apply it to my life. Yeah. But I had never listened to his podcast.
Yeah, of course. My best friends don't listen to this show.
Yeah. It's weird. I mean, it's weird.
It's so funny when like my friends will like hear me, like one of my best friends like heard me speak one time and she goes, I guess I like didn't really realize that like you could do that. And then like my son's dad, this was great because my son's dad called me and he goes, you know, your podcast showed up on my YouTube. Like it was suggested to me. And I said, hey, I'm in the algorithm.
Wow.
There we go. And he goes, yeah, I listened to it. And I was like, oh, and in my head, I'm like, hope it wasn't one about you. Like,
yeah.
And he's like,
I literally texted him from the audience and said like,
You're great.
My God, I can't believe how smart you are. And he didn't get it when we talked later that evening.
You're like, no, really? Like, had no idea.
I wasn't trying to be a smart ass. I had no idea how smart he is. I have sensitive ears and I like what I like and that's it. And I'm very, very limited to what I will expose my ears to.
Absorb.
And if it's most likely going to be something that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need that.
Yeah. I want to talk about before we wrap up, I want to talk about like your spirit, like daily spiritual practices. Cause I think if anybody follows you, like you get up, you walk, like you walked in the snow this morning and you have obviously like a good health regimen, you work out, you do all the things, but, and to preface this, looking at like your charts, you have like an undefined, it's called undefined, but you have an undefined crown chakra and you have an undefined root chakra. And usually people that have undefined chakras and that everyone has undefined centers. So that's not like, you're not like, there's nothing wrong with you. Don't worry.
I'm worried.
Normal, totally normal. But
I know I'm like less than average down here and then less than average up here.
It literally just means like it's more empathetic. So like if you have an undefined crown, like it makes sense that you are very particular about what you take on because you can absorb a lot and like then overthink. If you have an undefined root, like sometimes you have a hard time like finding roots and finding stability.
Okay.
And so things like meditation practices, taking walks, like a good health regimen, like making sure that you're drinking your juices, like eating the same thing every day. Like these practices can really help you to stay really grounded in who you are and what you want and where you're going. And so knowing what I know about you, I'm like, he's got a lot of routines. Like
I do, but they're almost all of them are based around a very brilliant, beautiful, powerful woman. So whether that's Addie, my trainer, Alexis, my physical therapist, Kimmy, my healer and myofascial stretcher.
Yep.
Taylor, my girlfriend.
Yep.
Jamie, who runs my company. Hallie, who runs my company. Kylie, who runs my company. My 100% of my corporate is female.
Yep.
100%.
That's awesome.
90% of my management are females or gay.
Yep.
And 80% of my employees are females. So
that's awesome.
I am just at the feet of divine feminine energy. And it's so funny because I said this on Melissa Wood Tepperberg's podcast.
Yeah.
And I was sitting cross-legged just because I don't know, sometimes it's just more comfortable to sit, I have tight hips and whatever, so I'm surprised I didn't do it in this one. But some guy just crucified me and was like, this guy's what do you call it when a woman fights for women's rights? What do you call that?
An activist? Feminist?
Nothing fucking worse than a male feminist. Oh. He's probably a cuck, like blah blah. Like, I mean, and all these guys just
You're
piled
like, sir, why are you mad?
And piled on and piled on and piled on. I am.
He needs a hug. I
am overtly a man with a good deal of feminine energy, but I'm a heterosexual man. That's where I am.
Yeah.
In this being. As a child and as a kid, there was experimenting, and in my teens and early 20s and even mid 20s, raves and sexual ambiguity and whatever. But where I am now, like I found it so funny that these white straight men were coming at my throat, and I just was so curious about it. Like
it's unhealed.
Like Melissa Wood Tepperberg or Lauren Bostic, who's another friend of mine.
Yeah.
Or Cindy Crawford or Queen, whatever. I'm becoming an LA name dropper now. Tulsi Gabbard. I surround myself with super powerful, amazing women.
Yeah.
And then I incorporate them into my routine. So I'm just this,
like a sponge almost for
I am.
Divine feminine spiritual practices.
I am. Yeah. And
that's cool.
Yeah. And I think it's ironic because I am gruff and I do lean right now and I swear a lot and I look masculine and sound masculine but I'm a child again.
Yeah.
I'm a child again.
Seems like you're leaning into like trust.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm leaning into trust and God, and I don't think God is a man or a woman. I think God is both. But I'm leaning into the woman part of God because when I was a little boy, not because she was a bad person, but my mom didn't have the capacity because she was suffering from Stockholm syndrome. She couldn't love me.
Yeah, same.
And so I learned at a very young age that I was unlovable. Hence the majority of the wreckage of my past.
Abandonment wounds.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until very, very late in life in the second plant medicine ceremony that I did where I got to actually confront my mom and say like, hey, I needed you to protect me and I needed you to love me and you didn't. And she explained her side. It was super powerful and very healing. And why am I don't know if I'm drawn to these powerful, to me, Queen Rania, Cindy Crawford, Tulsi Gabbard, Taylor, my girlfriend, it's all the same thing.
Yeah. It's an energy.
Yeah, I'm drawn to the same thing. I'm drawn to. I don't think they're drawn to me. I think I'm drawn to them. Yeah, and I tap into their power.
Yeah,
and I look to be healed and embraced and seen. So it's so wonderful to be seen. And I listen. I would love to take credit for SunLife Organics. I would love to take credit for all the great things going on in my life. But the reality is, I can barely, I mean this metaphorically, I know how to tie my shoes, but I can barely tie my shoes.
Yeah.
But I was able to find somebody like a Jamie, who's my CFO, or Kylie, or Hallie, or Reagan, our HR person. I was smart enough to bring these amazing, powerful women into my life, share with them
my vision.
My vision, yeah, my dream.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
what is your vision?
The only real true place of solace other than the nature, the woods, the stream, whatever, was the snack bar at the country club that was behind my house that I used to hop the fence and sneak into. And I would go to the snack bar, and then it was all these, young people that it was their first jobs, and there was sort of like this amazing happiness and like innocence, and they wanted to feed me. They could tell something was wrong.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of nurturing. Yeah. It wasn't just physical, like food, like, here, I'm going to give you some French fries and a corn dog and don't tell anybody and it's free.
Yeah.
Because that happened a lot.
Yeah.
But they genuinely wanted to fix. They knew something was wrong and they couldn't put their finger on it. And they genuinely wanted to heal me. It came in the form of corn dogs and French fries and Coca-Colas and slushies, sometimes hugs, sometimes walks, sometimes whatever. But that, and the intention of the healing, then in my life, I recreated that snack bar, but not with corn dogs and slushies, but with superfoods, with things that actually heal.
Yeah.
So the intention of wanting to heal, coupled with things that actually heal.
Yeah.
So that's the vision. That's the dream, is to take the darkness and the mud and then allow that beautiful lotus flower to come up out of that.
Yep.
And to reach towards its divinity, to reach towards the sun, and to open up and fully actualized and be nourished and to be seen and to be loved and to be held. And those women take that vision to fruition.
Yeah. Do you think you, because obviously, like, your past, like, we all in our younger years don't trust our intuition. Do you think you trust your intuition now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. I trust a lot of things now that I used to not trust. And you know what? I get burned all the time.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I get burned all the time. I've had people really mistake my kindness for stupidity.
Totally. Yeah.
It's okay. I've had people take my generosity for stupidity.
Yeah.
I genuinely want to feed you, and I want you to feel the energy of what I'm making.
Yeah.
And when I was doing that journey and I was crying to God and saying, like, look, I fucked my whole life up. All I want to do is, like, make the world a better place. And, before I leave this planet, I want to, like, make a difference or whatever. And it just, like, get smacked in the head.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you're already doing it.
Yeah.
Relax.
Well, and you probably had to learn to do it for yourself first.
I did.
Like,
I mean, that's
what is it, like, healed people heal people?
Yeah. That's where it came from.
Yeah.
That's where it came from. It came from me putting those things into a blender and then drinking it, and then eventually looking at that cigarette in my hand that was there for 20 years and going,
I don't think I need this anymore.
What are you doing, dude?
Yeah.
Like, when I would go reach for that glass bottle Mexican Coke, that's how I justified it, because it was real cane sugar and it comes in a glass bottle.
Of course.
Yeah. But when you're drinking 5 a day, you're fucking pre-diabetic.
100%.
Like,
100%.
I had to eventually come to terms with that. What you put in is what you're going to get out.
Yeah.
And if you want to put shit in, then you're going to get shit on the outside. Yeah. But if you put the energy of the sun, if you can take the berries and the fruit and the acai and the bananas and mix it together with the superfoods and not just make it palatable, but make it fucking delicious.
Yeah.
And then you put that inside, and then all of a sudden you're fucking glowing.
Right. I don't drink. I haven't drank probably in, 5 years or whatever. I've never been a huge drinker. My dad was type 1 diabetic, never drank. So, like, it's just never been something I've been, like, super into. But I haven't drank in a long time because I kind of, when I went through, like, my big spiritual awakening, I was like, I think I want to stay away from literally anything that takes me out of my frequency. Because, like, me being at, like, the top of my game, me being, like, clear and, like, focused on, because, like, I don't know, I think as a healer, you give a lot of energy, right? So, like, whether you're a healer through food and smoothies and, entrepreneurship, or you're a healer through, like, astrology and, it's like subconscious reprogramming, like, I give a lot. And I'm like, I realized that anytime I would have a drink, I would have anxiety anytime, any of those things. And I was like, this is not aiding in my spiritual wellness.
Yeah.
And it's fun actually to see so many more people like leaning into the acai and the berries and the bananas and the things that are actually causing wellness instead of the Band-Aid, right? Yeah. The masking. I think that's part of like the shift we're seeing happen in the world. I really do think that in the next like 20 years, we won't have as many people drinking. Like the alcohol won't be so much of a cultural thing anymore. And I'm like really excited about it because it's just gonna open up the world for so much more interconnectedness between humans.
Yeah. It's also, I mean, if you think about it, just from a literal standpoint, if you think about it, it's rot. It's literally
it's
rot.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like it's sugar and water and wheat.
Yep.
And it's yeast and like I don't know about you, but like I battled in my early recovery for almost 2 years because I had a systemic yeast infection.
Interesting.
I had it like in Candida? My blood, in my stool.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Everywhere.
Just overgrowth everywhere.
And I fought so hard. So like I don't want to put anything that's of that.
Nope.
The other thing is, you eat an acai bowl, you have energy, you want to go surfing, maybe you want to make love, maybe you want to do yoga, you want to go for a hike or whatever. You drink alcohol, and what happens? So let's just take today, for example. Around the world today, a lot of people are going to ingest alcohol into their system.
Coping,
right? So what are some of the byproducts from that going to be? Well, number one, violence.
Yep.
Especially with men.
Yep.
Probably not women as much, but men drink and they want to fight. They get beer muscles. They start fights that they have no business starting.
Yep.
Number two, date rape.
Yep.
Huge.
Yeah.
How many women are going to be date raped today as a result of alcohol?
Yeah.
Or three, overt rape. Like some men drink and they just turn into fucking lascivious monsters. Maybe some women do too. I have no fucking idea. But I know that drunk driving accidents are going to happen. Families of 5 are going to get killed by some person that's fucking inebriated. Violence is going to happen. Rape is going to happen. All these different things are going to happen.
And even like, like if we don't even want to go that extreme, even just the anxiety.
There's
like,
that too.
You know, the reason why we're so at each other's throats as a collective is because there's this collective anxiety we've all been taught. So like the alcohol is not making that any better.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just keeping it there.
Yeah. I don't want anything to do with that energy. I don't want anything to do with the energy of cocaine, anything to do with the energy of opiates, unless I have to like get surgery or have a tooth extraction. Then of course I'm going to want to utilize that medicine.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think it's great. And I love the fact that young people are shifting away from it. I love the fact that, you know, kin became a thing and now there's all these other non-alcoholic.
Jen Batchelor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
she's
great.
Beautiful.
Yeah, she's
amazing.
Great. I heard her speak at a conference last year. She's great.
I met her at SunLife.
She's great.
Cool.
Because you guys have kin,
We
right?
do.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Bella Hadid worked for us for 2 years and she's the other person behind kin.
Yeah.
So I just put it on the shelves out of respect for Bella because she was such a
But kin's great.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Kin's great. You guys have Hyo.
Yeah.
We have Hyos at our house like on subscription, like just all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I feel like we could talk forever, but last little thought before we go.
Sure.
Tell me like in like the future of you, the future of SunLife, the future of anything you're working on, what are you like most excited about right now?
Building my dream home on Lake Austin right now.
You're building it right now?
Yep.
When's it going to be done?
We're rushing it. We're really rushing it. I believe we'll be in there by summer.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So building my dream home, super excited about that. Mostly because
Lake Austin's beautiful.
Yeah. Mostly because of my girlfriend, just because I feel like she deserves it.
Yeah.
And I want to give that to her.
I love that.
She's my family. I don't have, my mom's gone, my dad's gone. I don't have any family. So she's my family. So
awesome.
Just, it's already in her name. It's already like, so in honor of her, building that home, turning it into like a little mini Atlantis. I'll have you guys over when
I was going to say, are we going to have a welcome party? Let's do it.
Not a party, but
a gathering.
The two of you together.
Dinner. We'll have it's great. A gathering of souls.
And it's on the water and there's a boat dock and there's a swimming pool and
so cool.
all kinds of crystals and everything. We're opening in Brentwood, California, Boulder, Colorado, New York City and Soho, Palm Beach, Florida, downtown San Diego, Denver. I'm probably missing like 3 or 4.
Is that your first New York?
That's the first New York.
In Soho?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
On West Broadway and Houston.
You know, all the people in New York, they need a little bit of good superfoods in their life. Yep. They're a little high strung.
They need to eat the sun.
They need to eat the sun.
Working on a couple licensing deals in the Middle East and South Africa. I'm going to talk to some people in Mexico as well. I feel like there's a third book in there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like in the best way possible, I feel like I'm just getting started.
Yeah, for sure you are.
That's what it feels like.
You're because how old are you?
55.
Yeah, you're in your 50s. You're like, it's like the 6'2s in human design. We're like a fine wine. We get better with age.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the difference.
Martha Stewart is a 6'2.
God, obsessed.
Like she got better after prison.
Obsessed.
Yeah, she's obsessed.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I don't like the difference between me at like 25 or even 35 would have been about like, how can I impress them so then maybe they'll sleep with me because then that would mean that I'm valid.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That I'm lovable.
Yeah.
That was me then.
Yeah.
The me now is I as soon as I get my haircut, I want to go home and take a shower because I don't like the little hairs all over me.
Yeah.
I'm leaving the barber and I'm like, no, dude, go get them. Call Ewan. Find out what they love. You know, go get that for them.
I know, you brought us these today.
I want to, like, the version of me now is, of course I want you to like me. Of course, you know, I want to be seen, but I want to feed you, and you liking me or not liking me, I am not dependent on that for feeling valid, lovable, and whole.
The releasing the need to be needed.
Yes. The mother wound through lots of work and money. Thank you, God.
Lots of money. Thank you. Thank you, God. Thank you, therapist. Thank you.
The mother wound has healed. The father wound through trials and tribulations and eventually just getting to the point of me going, you know what? This doesn't serve me anymore. I don't need this anymore.
No.
I'm not helping him. He's not helping me.
No.
I understand he's dying, but it's time to just walk away from this.
Yeah.
And
like drop the
rock.
Just drop it.
Drop the rock. And 2 months later. And
not like throw it down.
Yep.
Just let it go.
And 2 months later, he passed. I didn't shed a tear. It was weird. I'm like, oh, wow. Now
I'm an orphan.
Yes, literally. Now I'm on my own. But I didn't cry. And I'm a crier. I'll cry if like a goldfish dies in the aquarium. True story.
Yeah.
And I'm at Kimmy's place and we're doing the healing session or whatever. And a couple of times my mom had visited me over the last 4 years. A couple of times like Elliott Smith visited me, like weird shit.
Yeah, cool.
I'm leaving. This is like 2 months later. I'm leaving and she goes, oh, your dad's here. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Oh, no.
You're like,
we closed the door on this. We're not going back there.
Luck.
And she goes, no. He just wants to tell you something. It's really important. I'm like, okay. And she said, he wants you to know that he chose to be the villain in your life.
He needed it.
I'm like,
that's what yeah. You know, my dad died 4 years ago and like we had a great relationship, but like there were things I couldn't learn until he died.
Yeah.
And I had to get to the point where I was like, you know what? We all come here with a soul contract.
Yeah.
We all come here with a mission.
Yeah.
And your dad came here with his, you came here with yours. Yeah. Like my dad came here with his, and like I came here with mine. And
beautiful.
It's beautiful. And it really does help you like, okay, like maybe it wasn't like nothing, like, yes, things happened to me, but maybe it was like all meant to be that way so that we could get here.
Yeah. I love this 6'2" stuff. I love all this stuff. Now I'm going to be like,
I know. Now we need to do a deep dive. Now we need to do a deep reading.
The Martha Stewart, I mean, I've always been obsessed with
amazing.
her. And I remember watching the documentary and I remember when they're like, you know, she was talking shit about her first husband and she was like, he's a cheater and he's a cheater and he's a cheater. And then all of a sudden the guy in the background goes, didn't you have an affair when you were on your honeymoon? And she goes, yeah, but that didn't count. And I was like, yeah, Martha.
Get it, Martha.
Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy,
like, I was on her side.
I know, she's the best. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you for this conversation. If you're listening to this, go. Please buy both of the books.
Thank you.
Yeah, buy both of your books. I've only read I Forgot to Die.
Yeah.
So the other one is called
Remembering to Live.
Remembering to Live. Right.
Yeah.
So read both and
go to SunLife Organics and get a smoothie.
And anywhere, like literally anywhere in the country.
And
like,
if you see me, grab me. I will be talking because I never shut the fuck up.
Yeah, he'll be the one talking.
Yes. Grab me, interrupt me, and let me treat you, please.
Yeah.
Please.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Of course.